Before the begins, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. My name is Terry Murphy. I'm the Leisure Services Director for the town of South Kingstown. I'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome our town council members who are here with us this evening, Councilman O'Neill and Councilwoman Healy, and I believe Council Vice President McEntee is here. She's just not in the room as of yet. I'd also like to welcome our members of the Recreation Commission who are with us this evening. We have our Rec Commission Chair, Joanne Blessing, who is at the head table here. We have Vice Chair Will Litvin, who is also part of the Planning Committee. We have John Beafor, Jan Prochaska, and Mark Noble, who are with us as well. I don't believe beyond the school committee we have Kevin Jackson, who is with us, and on the Planning Committee. Is there another member? Oh, and school committee member Scott Miller is here with us as well. You're welcome to sit up front if you'd like with our elected officials.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Okay, at this time, what I'd like to do is go through the agenda for this evening's presentation. We will start with introducing our Planning Committee members who are here with us this evening, and I'll follow with a brief project history on the Recreation Center project, followed by our long-term cost impacts, a projected cost estimate for the design and construction of the facility, and an operational cost estimate for the facility. Following my presentation, we will have our design team who will present the design review of the conceptual design of the facility. Just a brief background on the Planning Committee. The members who you see here before you were appointed by the South Kingstown Recreation Commission. They represent a cross-section of the community, including 2 members of our Recreation Commission. We have 2 members from the school community and 3 public members who are with us. This committee has been meeting with the architectural consultant since July, advising and being a part of the design process with the intention of keeping the best interests of the town of South Kingstown residents in mind during this entire process. I'd like to start by turning the microphone over to Joanne Blessing, our Recreation Commission Chair.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Blessing. I am the chairperson of the South Kingstown Recreation Commission. I've served for several years now, and we are very enthusiastic and excited to bring this project forward since we started it more than 10 years ago. So,
Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Jackson, just completing my 8th year on the school committee. I've also coached in this numerous teams in this town for the past 10 years.
My name is Will Lippin. I'm the Vice Chair of the Recreation Commission, and this is my 2nd year on the commission. And just wanted to make a note that the South Kingstown Recreation Commission has unanimously supported the center since the 04-05 capital improvement program.
Good evening. I'm Terry Lynch, Athletic Director in South Kingstown. From our standpoint at the schools, this building will help alleviate a lot of scheduling nightmares that we do have. We have come to the point where we are turning groups away because of not enough space. That will help us tremendously. The other thing it'll help our kids at our school, in particular our indoor track team. If anybody knows anything about our indoor track team, the only part of indoor track are the meets. We practice at Curtis Corner outside all the time in the elements. So this building will allow us to have our kids be able to practice in an indoor facility. We understand that it will not be competition ready, which is fine. All of our competitions are in Providence, but it'll allow our kids to be able to practice over there, which I think is very important. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ray Carr. I'm the senior rep for the seniors of this community. I've been waiting for this project since the first bond issue. Not only for the seniors, but I have 6 grandchildren, and they're all playing soccer, lacrosse, tennis, any number of sports. And I see this myself being a tennis player over at the Broad Rock schools, the facilities we have over there, and the number of people participating. I think it's a great facility. If we get it built, it's going to serve a lot of people, including seniors, myself, track and fitness center and basketball and you name it. And it's pretty cold playing tennis in December. And with a new building, I think it's going to serve us all. It's a great, if you see the picture that's laid out here, it's a great complex. I just hope we push and get it.
My name is Roger Fazio. I've been a resident of South Kingstown for about 13 years. I'm a private practice pediatrician that practices here in town, caring for many of the youth who would benefit tremendously by this facility. I've also participated in many adult drop-in programs, and as a citizen of the town, can't wait to do some of those drop-in programs in this new facility instead of some of the older school gyms that we currently have our adult drop-in facilities. I've also been a youth basketball coach here in town, going back about 7 years, coaching both of my kids in just rec, as well as tournament and travel, and can tell you when we compete against other towns who have similar facilities, who have much more practice time availability, we go against teams that are far more competitive than us only because they can practice more often than we can. And this facility will give us plenty more gym space for our youth basketball program to increase practice times, and not only for youth basketball, but for other youth programs that we don't even have right now, like youth tennis, youth volleyball, up-and-coming sports. I really, really, really hope that this building is passed because this community needs it desperately. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dave Palizzetti. I could probably echo a lot that Roger said. I've been a resident for 16 years. I have 2 boys, 14 and 11, that have worked their way up through multiple rec programs. I'm also a board member of the South Kingstown Little League. This facility will do a lot for those programs especially. If you haven't noticed lately, there have been 4 commercial attempts at an indoor baseball winter training facility in town. All 4 haven't been able to sustain themselves. And currently, there's no indoor facility anywhere between here and Warwick that's open to the public. So this will offer 2 batting tunnels that will help not just Little League, but also our middle school and high school teams to be able to train before they go out on the frozen tundra in February and March. And also, on the basketball side, like Roger said, the other teams have more practice time. South Kingstown, I don't know if you've realized, we've had to limit the number of travel teams we've had. So we've actually had tryouts with 8-year-olds, and it's really kind of sad. Nobody should have to tell an 8-year-old that they didn't make the cut and they don't have a team to play on. This facility, when you see it, will have 4 basketball courts that can be used for practice. There's 2 main courts, but you can go cross court with 4 courts. That allows a lot more practice time. It also allows earlier practice time, so the 13-year-olds aren't out there at 9 o'clock on a school night practicing basketball. Thank you.
Thank you, Planning Committee. I'd also like to acknowledge the staff support on the Planning Committee. Josh Rosen, our town engineer, and our finance director, Trish Sunderland. And I was remiss in not acknowledging my boss this evening, who is here with us as well. Stephen Alfred is here, town manager. Sorry about that. The committee felt it was important that the public be fully informed about this project going forward, particularly before the November 4th election day, where there's a $1 million bond referendum on the ballot. So it's important that the facts are out there regarding the recreation center, and that's the purpose of this meeting tonight. I'd also like to make sure that the public is aware that this meeting is being live streamed on the web, and it will be recorded and posted on the town website through a link so that the public can view it at another time. We also have handouts that will be available, that are here available. They'll be available by PDF online, and the PowerPoint presentation will also be accessible. So our hope is that the information is put out there and everybody has an understanding of what this project is. To provide a brief planning history of the project was proposed first in the fiscal year 2004-05 to 2009-2010 Capital Improvement Program to address the needs of indoor recreational and athletic space for the town. Both the school department and the town recreation program was in need of more space in order to accommodate the programs that existed. This is back in 2004. It was a collaborative project. Both the school department and the town felt strongly that there was a need for additional gymnasium space. The trend in the early 90s, we saw an increase, a spike in the population between 1990 and 2000 at about 13%, and then an additional increase in the population from 2000 to 2010 by another 9%. Those are important figures. This project has evolved over that time frame. So has the population. So to meet the demands of the current population of the town, this planning committee is putting forth this proposal this evening. The bond funding that was approved for this project in 2004 and 2006 was $3.15 million. Over the last 7 years, the project was delayed as a result of a prolonged recession and a focus on reducing the town's overall debt service. However, the need hasn't gone away. It's actually increased because of this, the increase in the population regardless of age. This town is an active community. All demographics we see through the rec department utilizing our programs. This isn't just about youth. It's about seniors, it's about adults being active and healthy in the community. It's also important to note that the town has 4 school gymnasiums that are available for competitive play. We also have the Guild Gymnasium, which I'm sure those of you who have been in town a while know what the Guild Gymnasium looks like. It's quite small. It's not adequate for competition. In the current capital improvement program, the town council supported the recommendation to move forward with the project as the debt service of the town has decreased and the economy has begun to rebound. So as we move forward with presenting this proposed facility this evening, just a bit of background on the intended use. There's a question and answer document that is posted online on the town website that addresses some of these questions, but we'll run through them tonight to give this audience and the public an idea, and this is just an idea of what some of the programs are that will be accommodated by the new facility. We intend to use the facility to accommodate our existing recreation department programs, the athletic program specifically, also to accommodate school department athletics, phys ed, primarily for the Broad Rock Middle School, who will be able to utilize that facility because of its proximity to the school, intramural sports, adult and senior activities, including a walking club, which currently does not exist, an indoor walking club that would be able to be scheduled because the proposal does include a walking track around the court space. As I kind of scroll through some of the photos here, I'll give you an idea of some of the existing programs and what our capacities are. Our youth basketball program is the largest recreation program that the rec department runs. It's got in excess of 800 registrants, ages 5 through 18, and several levels of play. There's recreational travel, tournament travel, and instructional. In addition to that, we have also adult basketball leagues and drop-in programs. We have tennis programs. Indoor tennis is in demand. We have some youth programming. We don't have enough facility space to accommodate the need. We don't have any adult indoor tennis at the current time. Although South Kingstown is a tennis community, it's quite evident by the number of courts that we offer outside. and the demand that the Recreation Department sees, not to mention the tennis dynasty at the South Kingstown High School. Volleyball. We have a once-a-week volleyball program, adult volleyball program, currently that runs. Our participants get there early. They play cards in the cafeteria so that they are the first ones through the doors, because we can cap it we have to cap it at 40 participants. It's very popular. We have a 2-hour-a-week time frame that we're able to use the gymnasium, and that program clearly is in need of expansion. We have a demand for a league and more drop-in programs. We have exercise programs that take place currently at the Guild, senior fitness classes. We intend to relocate those classes over to the new facility. If anyone's taken classes at the Guild, you know Barb. She's been there for over 30 years. We also offer any number of, and would like to offer more, indoor sports programs and clinics for our youth programming in terms of our vacation camps and summer camps. This is a photo of a fencing camp that we ran this past summer. We have to pick and choose because currently we don't have the space to offer what we feel the community would be receptive to in terms of numbers. We just don't have that space at this time. And this does not speak to the need for the school athletic program, which Terry Lynch has spoken briefly about, but it would also allow for interscholastic athletics, more practice time, intramurals, middle school, enhancement of middle school sports as well. And adult programming, as I mentioned, we do have adult programs. Again, those are the programs that get put aside in order that we serve our youth population first. We do feel that we'll have the capacity to offer more basketball, more volleyball, more indoor tennis, dodgeball, primarily competitive play programs. This table that you see up on the screen now is part of the Q&A that's on the town website. And essentially what it lays out is our existing programs, the numbers from this past 2013-2014 year, and our current capacity. Essentially, it's a snapshot of what I've just gave you, which is we just don't have the space for many of these programs, and we have others that we've not even implemented, such as pickleball, the indoor walking program. We have a very growing number of young ladies interested in field hockey, the indoor track program. And we also would be remiss if we did not mention the several youth leagues that are in our community today that seek indoor space during off-season, pre-season, and inclement weather in order to get the kids inside, practice, and compete. So what I'd like to do now is take a look at a broad view of the town's adopted 6-year capital program. It proposes 4 major projects in the amount of $10.55 million. We have the Community Recreation Center project at $4.15 million, Neighborhood Guild improvements at $1 million, roadway improvements at $400,000, and school renovations at $5 million. So the total planned bonding is $10.55 million over the next 6 years. And if we take a look at the projected capital program cost over that time frame, this $10.5 million will not require any increase in property tax support due to the declining debt service requirements. The current property tax requirement is $1.66 million as of FY 2015. If you look, assuming that the projects are put in place in FY 2016 and repayment begins in fiscal year 2017, the property tax requirement is $1.57 million. Because of the way the bonding and the borrowing is layered over the course of time, the debt service has come down to a point where the town is able to borrow and not increase the tax rate. If we take a look at the $4.15 million bond funding for the rec center, over the next 20-year term of the bond repayment, the property tax impact will range between 4 and 9 cents per $1,000. The total repayment at a 4% interest rate will be $5.8 million. So if we look at the tax impact itself, it's not an increase, it's the impact of this particular amount of money, $4.15 million, will be between $17 and $30 per single-family dwelling in town. Now, if we look at the project cost estimate for the design and construction of this facility, in December 2013, the estimated project cost in the capital improvement program, without having detailed design plans, was at $5 million. As a result of the design and estimation process that took place over this past summer, the Planning Committee projects the cost of the construction of the facility to be $5.13 million and an additional $1 million for design, documents, construction documents, project management, information technology, furnishings, and bond fees. So the total cost would be $6.15 million for this project. Of that, $4.15 million would be bond funding. And the funding sources currently include $3.15 million of current approved bonding, $1 million in recreation impact fees, $1 million in general fund unassigned fund balance, and a $1 million bond pending this voter approval this November. The next piece of important information is the operational costs of a facility of this nature. Clearly, there will be an operational cost. We can address it. At this time, we're estimating $353,000 to run this facility in the first year of operation. There is a property tax needed to pay for this new programming, the ongoing operation of this facility, and it is projected at between 5 and 8 cents per $1,000 of assessment value. The cost for a single-family dwelling to meet this tax burden is estimated between $18 and $28 per year. So just to recap a little bit on the numbers here, we have the bond funding for the actual construction project at $4.15 million. There's no tax increase as a result of that borrowing. In terms of the operational costs of this center, it would cost an average household between $18 and $28 per year for this facility. The Planning Committee felt it was very important for the public to understand what the financial impact of a project of this type would be before the election day. Ultimately, the community will decide whether they choose to support the $1 million bond necessary to cover the cost of this facility. That concludes the financial snapshot of this presentation and the project. At this time, we'll move on to our design team, and they'll go over a review of the proposed design of the facility. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Nate Ginsberg, principal of Brewster Thornton Group Architects, and he'll take over the presentation from this point.
Thank you, Terry, for the introduction and for the review of all of that information. There's certainly a lot of information there. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the building committee for showing up weekly, early, having a lot to say, bringing your enthusiasm, but also making decisions quickly and allowing us to move forward quickly with the design. So I feel our success was through your efforts. I'd like to take a few minutes to describe that process that we went through and how we will help the rec department with the spaces that they need to fulfill their mission I'd like to introduce the design team, like Sal Canciello from S3 Design and Joe Casali from Joe Casali Engineers to walk us through some of their efforts and their work. As Terry said, my name is Nate Ginsberg. I'm a partner with Brewster Thornton Group. We've had the privilege of serving institutions and municipalities throughout Rhode Island for the last 25 years. The engineering team that we've put together, that's on this next slide, is made up of folks that we have worked with throughout that time. Joe Casali Engineering, civil engineers, Wilkinson and ART Associates, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, Landscape Elements, landscape design, Keo Construction, our cost estimators. We're also pleased with these efforts to have S3 Design out of Boston on the team as our recreational experts. The team was chosen, as I said, because they're folks we've worked with, but also because they are experts with a proven track record. They're local. Wilkinson and Joe Casali and Landscape Elements are all in Warwick. Keo Construction, Brewster Thornton Group are in Providence. These are folks that we've worked with throughout Rhode Island, at the University of Rhode Island, many municipalities, including South Kingston. They are experts and have proven their responsiveness over the years. We're thrilled for this effort to be working with S3 Design. Sal Canciello, who was a founding principal of S3 Design, has been working in the field for more than 20 years and brings that experience of all of those rec center projects to this project as well. S3 uniquely brings together the technical knowledge of issues related to sports and athletic facilities with an understanding of how these spaces can define the sense of a community for the athlete, competitor, spectator, and general user. Over the summer, as a design team, we've been working with the rec department and the building committee to develop a concept and a plan that would allow us to provide the cost estimates that were reviewed today. We've worked to place the building on the site, to develop an efficient floor plan, and to look at that building in order to determine that budget. Throughout the process, we've worked to balance the many needs of all of the groups that will be using this facility, all of the sports and all of the activities that need to go in the structure, while at the same time maintaining the economy of that structure. We've worked for the optimal layout of each sport and each event, and to define the experience of both the athlete and the spectator in a way that eases the use of the building and enhances the overall experience. I'd like to turn it over to Joe Casali to spend a few minutes to take us through the challenges of placing the building on the site and the opportunities that are offered by this site.
Well, good evening, and again, thank you for having us. My name is Joe Casali, and I'm the civil engineer, and I'd like to just take a moment to take you through the site, you know, as we see it as civil engineers, and talk about some of the site constraints that we face. Yeah, that's fine. You all can know the site from Broad Rock Road and St. Dominic Road. You can see the large 150-acre piece that we've outlined that encompasses both the middle school and the senior center. There's the Narragansett Electric Company easement that's sort of, well, it bifurcates the lot. The lot to the south, as you know, is the 20-acre piece that has the Y, and that's the current site for the recreation center. That's known locally as Lot 55. It's the 13-acre piece. When you see how we've laid out the site, and we'll focus in on in a minute, and then we'll come back out, we've looked at the overall dimensions and how the building and the parking facilities are going to relate to the residential and different uses around there. From its distance to Broad Rock Road, to the nearest residential lot, to even the effect that it may or may not have on the ball fields. So when we get close on this 13-acre site, and you know, we see the middle school to the north and the senior center to the south, St. Dominic Road is the typical 50-foot right-of-way, a town-maintained road. And then we have the existing walking path that really cuts through the lot. And that's one of the elements that we wanted to encapsulate in our design and welcome that walking path and those recreation facilities in. When you look at the topography, that's what Nate says some of the constraints are and some of the challenges. You can see how innocuous the site is. These red lines are 10-foot contours, and then there's 2 feet in between. So most of this water is flowing into that little kettle that you see right over there. We've had the wetlands delineated. We've hung 2 sets of flags. Both are wetlands that are larger than 3 acres, meaning that DEM is going to take that additional 50-foot jurisdictional wetland buffer on there. We've also taken test holes around the area to make sure that there wasn't high water table, construction debris, unsuitable material. You can see that, you know, the water tables are a little bit high in the area as we expected. We did get a lot of in situ material and not a lot of fill, so we felt very comfortable with that. So when we started laying out the site in sort of a compact way that we could still fit in all of the program that you ask for the, really the resources that we have, we've laid out a 126 parking space field, which is going to have 5 handicap spaces, which is in conformance with the ADA regulations. We also think it's important that we have a drop-off area. We want to separate the vehicular movement from the pedestrian movement so that if there are, you know, moms and dads dropping off their kids, they're not going to be walking through any vehicular paths. And then we always think it's important that the drop-off area, you have visibility to the entrance. That way, if you're dropping off the children, they have that ability. You can almost see them walk right into the door. So we have 2-way traffic through that main entrance for the parking field, but we have a 1-way loop. So if you want to drop off a child and then you're on your way, you can leave the site. If you wanted to circle back to park your car and go back into the building, you didn't have to leave the site to do so. We have the pedestrian walking path that's important to us, that we want to have that continuation and have those pedestrians interface with the rest of the community, and have this as a welcoming area and allow people to still traverse in that northern southerly direction as they could. Last 3 items, you know, once we get into later stages of the design, we're going to have to permit the stormwater through both the town and the Department of Environmental Management, and obviously hook up to both your sewer and your water connections for the requisite utilities. So Nate, I think here's where you'd like to talk about how the site works nicely with the intended architecture of the building.
Great. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate your summary of some of those issues. There were actually a lot of technical issues in there that Joe kind of went through very quickly. And just to summarize some of those issues, the design layout, the layout on the site maintains the vegetated buffer to Broad Rock Road. So the trees that you see there now will continue to be there in the future. It reinforces and actually brings the existing pedestrian path from the Broad Rock Middle School through to the senior center and incorporates it as part of this building to enhance the building and enhance the path at the same time. The floor level of this building is actually going to be about 10 feet lower than Broad Rock Road. So as you're driving down Broad Rock Road, the building will not loom large over the road. It's actually lower than that driving path. And then the area to the east will remain open where there is a potential for future use as ball fields. After turning off Broad Rock Road onto St. Dominic Road, there will be a new green buffer put in between the gym and St. Dominic Road to buffer the senior center a little bit and maintain a tree-lined drive as you pull in. The existing stone walls along St. Dominic Road will be improved and maintained and accommodate the new entry and exit from the parking lot Joe touched on the pickup and drop-off area, and I actually, as a parent with small children, I'm more concerned about pickup, to tell you the truth. And queuing along that area, we've made sure that there's a pretty long distance so that a number of cars can queue up at the same time, and they can all see to the front door of the building. Buses can pull in and park there for games that will allow those teams to enter and exit the building and know where that bus is as they come and go. The walkway from the drop-off to the adjacent pedestrian path to the middle school leads into a large pedestrian plaza. This plaza will serve as a community space, a space for larger groups. It could accommodate an event. It could be a place to kick off or end an event. It can be a gathering space for groups that are on their way in or out of the building, or it can just be a social space where you might meet other folks that are coming and going from that building. The entry plaza leads into the main vestibule, which is the main building lobby. The overall design of the building was kept very simple and economical so that we could stay within a budget, but also to allow for the most amount of the funds to be spent on program spaces within the building. The gym to the west side, the larger gym space, is intended to be a pre-manufactured metal building with all the doors, windows, roofing, siding, and the translucent panels at the top that allow natural light into the gym to be provided by the metal building manufacturer. This was the most economical way to build a large volume gym. To the east side, towards the parking lot, this is where there will be smaller spaces, administrative spaces, multi-purpose room spaces. Those smaller spaces are more economical to build with conventional construction, so that block will be built as a conventionally constructed space. Those conventionally constructed spaces face the parking lot. The building committee was very interested in having a transparency and a translucency to the building that allowed folks that pulled into the parking lot to see the activity within the building, to have a welcoming facade so that on arrival it's evident that there's an active building, it's evident where the entry is. The folks that are staffing the building that have spaces within that entry lobby can see out to people coming into the building and can easily monitor the spaces within. The gym is clad with metal panels that, again, are the most economical way to provide that space. The conventionally constructed building is clad with a composite stone panel that was selected for its abuse and graffiti resistance. The building plan is organized into 3 parts. Each of these parts are joined off of the main lobby by a corridor. The lobby, which is directly off the gym, serves as an anteroom to the gym, but also serves as an orientation space where you come into the reception, can be told where the activity that you're going to is. You can be seen by the staff in the building. This lobby serves as a social space, a waiting space, a gathering space, a reception space. It has concessions as in the form of vending machines, water fountains, bathrooms, and views into the gymnasium for parents that are picking up their children. The 2 corridors, each one serving the locker room area, one serving the multi-purpose room area, are separated to allow athletes, coaches, and referees to be separated from spectators and separated from the users of the multi-purpose room. Sal from S3 was instrumental in creating a design that allows each of these spaces to be used independently so that while there's a function or a game going on in the gym, multi-purpose room can also be used, and events and activities can happen at the same time within this space, allowing the most flexibility for the rec department in scheduling. I'm going to turn it over to Sal to talk a little bit more about how some of these spaces are layered and how the activities happen within the building.
So, thank you, Nate. So looking at the primary space, which is the actual gymnasium, we'll start with that, and you could see that the main challenge was how do we accommodate the multiple different functions and pick the right surfaces and plan the room so that this gymnasium isn't just designed for basketball, it's not just designed for volleyball or for events, but it really serves all the sports equally well that need to share this space. And one of the biggest challenges of that is what is the floor surface? You know, a traditional wood floor works very well for basketball, but doesn't work well for ball sports to come in and practice in the off season because the floor dense, it gets beat up, the maintenance of the floor becomes a real issue. So we've selected a floor it's a padded floor that has the same exact kind of resiliency of a wood floor, and it balances the slip and grip of a wood floor while being synthetic at the same time. So it's a newer product. It's about 10 years old that we've used before that really prevents injuries and really balances the kind of friction that you need to be able to do sports like tennis, and has the padding for the impact for the sprung nature that you need for the heavy impact of basketball and volleyball. You could see that the two main courts are you can see there are two main courts here and here, and that's both those are striped for basketball, volleyball, and tennis, and run in this direction. And then there are 4 practice courts, which you can see a basket here and here, and those go across the basketball court. So those allow for 4 youth teams to be able to use those courts at the same time for practices to really make sure you can get the most number of kids in here at one time to use the space efficiently. At the same time, this space can be divided by a curtain and really create a performance gym with retractable bleachers on this side, a performance basketball court, team benches over here, and additional kind of tilt and roll bleachers that slide out into the space over here to get the capacity up and have kind of a home team and a visiting team side to the gym, so that this big box gets a little bit more intimate and transforms itself into a real performance gymnasium. While that is the performance gymnasium, the space behind that curtain could be used for, you know, if you're running a tournament or running events, teams can be back behind that curtain. You could have staging and things like that happening behind the scenes. In addition, you could see the running track that runs around the perimeter. That would be at the surface of the gym on the same floor, but again, that same padded floor prevents shin splints. It's an impact material so that you could jog and walk on it. And that, once the bleachers are retracted, comes back along this area, and that is 1/12 of a mile. So 12 laps around that track are a mile. In addition, you can see it's kind of hard to see on the plan, but there's a box here and here, and those are drop-down nets that come down from the ceiling that are batting cages, so that could be used for pitching and for batting in the off-season for baseball, for training, give them an advantage to be able to do that indoors before you can really get out on the fields in the spring to use the fields. In addition, the padding that will be around the gym and the surfaces will allow for sports like indoor soccer, lacrosse, to be able to come in here in the off-season and practice and train in an environment where they can throw balls around and don't have to put down protection over the floor like you have to do in a gym with a gymnasium like in the schools with a wooden floor. So it really becomes a very abuse-resistant environment that really accepts all kinds of sports. In addition, that same floor allows for other events to happen. You can set up tables and chairs on it without damaging it, and have you could have an athletic reception, you could have an honors night for athletes, or you could just have a community event or a speaker come in there and have other kinds of events. So that kind of summarizes kind of the multiple use nature of the gym. And then to focus on, as Nate was talking about, the 2 corridors, this corridor is really your kind of athlete event corridor, and this is kind of your public use multi-purpose corridor. So this has really been designed to function differently for different events. For example, here there are 2 locker rooms, and then there are restrooms that are also accessed off the hallway. The idea behind this is that for a basketball game or a volleyball game, you could have a home team and a visiting team locker that have separate spaces for those teams to function and really host an event well. So you're really being a good host to the visiting team and shows kind of the quality of the facility. During normal operation, that becomes a men's and women's locker room for the functions that kind of are currently happening at the Guild for drop-in use and for other kinds of events. And then in addition, down the end of that hallway, there are two officials' locker rooms so that when you have an event, you have a place, you meet the guidelines for an official to have a place to change. But during normal operation, those become family change rooms. So a father with a young daughter can go in there and change and lock their stuff up if they're going to have some drop-in use of the facility. In addition, there's a first aid room, which also doubles kind of as a coach's office. So if there's a coach for teams that are coming, they have a place to put their stuff down and kind of just have a centralized place to organize the event that they're hosting and organize their team. They could also, if there's an issue with practice on the court, they could take a player off the court and kind of talk to them privately instead of in the middle of the gymnasium, which is really kind of the standard that we like to plan for to just to make a better relationship between the coach and the players and not be singling people out. So moving on from that is kind of the public corridor, which again is this corridor, depending on the event, it could work in support of a larger event or tournament, or it can work separately. So that you could have group exercise classes going on during practices, youth practices at the same time, and they really wouldn't conflict with each other. But if you did have a large tournament, these rooms could be used for team rooms. You could have a breakout for a team where they can meet and put their stuff down. Since we're not building 20 locker rooms or 10 locker rooms to serve for a tournament, those rooms can double as just a place for them to put their gear down and kind of meet before and wait until it's their turn to play. These two rooms really are intended to function exactly to host mainly the same programs that are currently happening at the Guild for group fitness. It's really not an expansion of that program, it's just replacing those items over in this location. And there is a small multi-purpose room between, which will have some cardio equipment in it and some weight equipment, but that really is just replacing the exact same programs that are currently in the Guild. It's not adding any additional space. It's really there just to serve that same population and give the opportunity for coaches to kind of show athletes the proper way to lift or some exercise that they might like them to work on. So it's right there at the facility. So it really is a convenience factor and broadens the ability of teams. In addition to that, down this bar, as Nate discussed, are the restrooms, which then kind of keep the public during halftime on this side of the building separate from where the teams are going back to the locker rooms. And that pretty much summarizes kind of the way that the internal organization of the building. Again, to summarize, we try to maximize the spaces to get as many multi-purpose uses as we can so that every square foot of the building is being built to be used in multiple ways and be used at multiple different ways at multiple times.
Thank you, Sal. I think you did a great job summarizing that at the end, so I was going to do the similar summary. But the important thing to take away from that, I think, as Sal just said, is that the rooms can be used at the same time. It aids with the scheduling. Each one of them has multi-purposes. So just looking at the top court, we've got basketball, tennis, volleyball, all with regulation lines on the same court that can be used at different times for different things. The locker rooms, the way that they were designed, there's a door separating the locker rooms from the bathrooms so that the bathrooms can be used for functions that are happening in the gym. If it's not a game, it's not a team locker area, those function as normal bathrooms. During a game, the bathrooms were sized to handle all of the competitors and all of the multi-purpose rooms being used at the same time, so the building can continue to function even if there's a game going on and events happening or activities happening in the multi-purpose room. But what we've been struggling as a design team with is how to layer all of the current program that has a lack of space at the Guild with all of the program that has no space at the Guild. And Sal and Joe have done a great job of pushing this forward and accommodating those uses while looking to economize and provide a building that's going to be maintenance-free and last a long time. I'm going to turn it back over to Terry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nate and Joe and Sal, for the presentation. Before we move on to the question and answer period and the public comment, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Project Planning Committee for their time. Over the course of the summer, they spent many hours involved with this design team to put forth what you see tonight. At this point, it's really, it's up to the community in terms of deciding whether or not to support the $1 million bond that is on the referendum this November. At this time, unless the Planning Committee has any comments, we're open to questions and comments, and the podium is available. Please speak into the mic, and if you would state your name as well.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Osborne. I'm here this evening because I feel like this town really needs a facility of this sort. I've lived in South Kingstown all my life, 63 years old. I've seen playing at the gym when I've been 4 or 5 years old over at the Recreation Commission, which is a wonderful opportunity to have had. It was a place that anybody could go freely, not have to pay very much money, get all kinds of activities. Open gym on Saturday morning, anybody could go, and everybody looked forward to doing so. That's something in this town that I don't really believe that we have that at this point in time. All the activities that the Recreation Commission provides is just enormous, and they've done such a good job for the growth of this town. When we were young, there were around 5,500 people. There's over 30-some thousand now. So in anticipation of keeping ahead, we must do something of this sort. I also have 4 grandchildren. 2 of them now, one is almost 15 at the high school, and another one is 13 years old, who is at Curtis Corner. I have traveled the roads as much or more so with them than I've ever traveled with my own 2 daughters going to school here. And what I have experienced over the 9 years of doing that, almost every single weekend from November to May, and I have found that travel team, we do not have enough space for these children to even have practice. The coaches can't even get into our gyms for practice. There seems to be more teams for the boys than there are girls. And I will be a big advocate for girls. As I used to play basketball, field hockey, there was no such thing as Title IX. You were just lost. So girls are up there today. We need our town and our Recreation Commission and our schools to be able to provide more room for the girls also for their sports. I also look at this as the Guild's mission when we were young was open to everybody in the community. Today, I know we have to pay for a lot of sports, whether it's travel team, AAU, and it's very, very expensive. I also know Roger sitting on the board there as being a travel team coach, who my son played on our grandson plays on his team for many years. I wasn't asked to come here tonight. I felt very strongly of coming here on my own. That when we go to these travel games, there are many children who live in our community who cannot afford to be on travel teams in AAU. And there is not any place where these children can freely walk in without paying a fee to have to join the Y or the club or another club. So I would love to see some open free time for junior high and high school kids. These kids are getting out of school at 1:47 at Broad Rock Middle School is also after that time, which is a lot of time for our children in this town to be free. If you're participating in a sport, but there's not enough room for a lot of intramurals. My grandson and granddaughter went over to Broad Rock. They didn't have hardly any intramural sports to occupy these children after school, and I used to think, where are these kids going home at 1:50 in the afternoon when a lot of folks cannot be home till 5 or 5:30? Well, people would say, well, the Y has after daycare school. Well, yes, it is a very costly expense for a lot of families who cannot own it. So for the lower children of this community, there needs to be some open free time for these children to have a place to go. And one last note, economics. Okay. When I look at what it's going to cost per year for each family, when the build out of this is $25 or $29 a year, you can't even buy a pass to a gym for a year for a family. So it's a very, very low cost economic expense, I think, for everybody in the town for $20-some a year to keep our kids off the streets, out of trouble, keep them active, and have them some good, healthy place to go after school. And the amount of money that could be generated if this project is operated correctly. When I go to these travel team, high schools, gyms, wherever they are, the amount of revenue that comes through water, Gatorade, pizza, it's enormous. It sounds ridiculous, but it's an enormous amount of money that could help generate programs or pay for the maintenance of the people who have to upkeep the building after the games. And the amount of money that comes into one's town when you go and see how many teams come to this building and play these games from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, we're there sometimes. These people have to eat. They're going to the pharmacy because they've got bruise and it's swelling. They need medication. They need ACE bandages. People need gas in their car. It's amazing the amount of money, and I know for doing it for 9 years of what it cost. So that's all I have to say this evening, that I really do hope that this project moves forward, and I hope that it's designed properly, because I probably will never be here, but I can see this building someday is going to have to even be bigger if it's the facility at some day to facilitate everybody in the community. Thank you.
Keith Forehaven. I'm not going to use a lot of time at this meeting to voice my accolades for this. I'm in full support, and I'm pleased. And I'm a cynic. I'm looking for reasons not to like it, and I don't have a lot. Based on the presentation, I do have a question. You've gone into detail on how a car would access this facility. And my question is, was there design considerations for bicyclists and pedestrians accessing this building?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll be able to see in the rendering there's a bike rack out front, but we will continue to work on that to make sure that we accommodate bike traffic to the building. The pedestrian path has already been established. What comes down the road as far as sidewalks or bicycle lanes still needs to be established, but it is certainly something that we want to encourage. As much physical activity that we can engender within the town, we would like to inspire. Absolutely.
There is, I'm I'm sure you're aware of it, but it hasn't been mentioned in the conversation. There is a bike path that is, for all intents and purposes, accesses this location. And I just didn't see that in your design. And if I could have some clarification, along St. Dominic Road, is there a planned sidewalk there? Because there is sidewalks on Broad Rock, so you could certainly walk on a sidewalk to St. Dominic's. Is there a plan for a sidewalk from Broad Rock to the door?
Not as part of this project.
Okay. Then I'd ask if it was a point to add that, it would be helpful. And I'm sure you're not from the town, but for those of us that were here when South County Commons went in, which is a wonderful facility, but it is solely accessible through a vehicle. So if you were a pedestrian or a bicyclist, you would struggle to access South County Commons. So I'm only pointing that out as an opportunity to learn from that past design and hope that there could be accommodations for pedestrians. Thank you.
So if I may just respond a little bit to your line of questioning, Keith. The site at Broad Rock for this facility was identified as being ideal because of its connectivity to the resources that already exist there, the middle school, the senior center, the play fields, and the connectedness to South County Commons, which currently is a natural path from the end of St. Dominic Road up to the Commons, which is also in the capital program as a project that we're looking to be able to complete in the future in order to be able to really bring that that part of the Commons connected to that kind of a campus setting of, of the community resources there. And there's also a path that connects the facility, that property, over to Old Mountain Field.
Right.
So it's really an ideal site. I'm sure that the committee and the design team will go back and look at, as we move forward with this, the idea of where sidewalks might be necessary. There's certainly a pedestrian access from the Broad Rock Middle School through the fields without even accessing the roadway. So that's part of the plan as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Susan Marcus, and I just have a question. I'm confused about several things, but the one I want to ask about is the replacing the Guild's functions now and the fact that there is $1 million in some bond effort to restore the Guild. So can you clarify what will happen to the Guild building, what the $1 million the Guild restoration is, and how that doesn't somehow overlap with what you're doing here? Sure.
So there's a Guild Improvement Project that's been in the capital program for several years as well, in the form of a $1 million bond. The intent for that project is to upgrade the infrastructure in the Neighborhood Guild in terms of the HVAC system, new windows, reconstruction of the front alcove. That the Guild will be utilized for more cultural arts and passive programming. As we move forward, if this project comes to fruition with the Rec Center project, we're looking to bring the active and athletic programming into one facility and utilize the Guild more for what it's primarily been utilized for, which is educational, enrichment, and cultural arts programming. We have the Knapp School of Music, we have the Access to Art programming, we have a pottery studio, we have a woodworking shop. All of those programs exist now. Really, the only things that will be moved out of the Guild will be the exercise programs and the fitness room function. And we'll look towards creating more of a cultural arts type of setting for passive activities at the Guild.
Okay, then I said I had only one question, but while you were talking, I thought I have a second question. May I ask a second question?
Absolutely.
I don't hear anything And I'm concerned about the materials being used in this building. I don't hear anything about energy efficiency. I see a great big flat roof there, and I wonder why that couldn't be used to do something. I also am a little concerned. So I'd just like to know how energy efficient this building is going to be.
Sure. One thing that we do as part of all of our projects is to take the advances in energy efficiency and to incorporate them as part of our standard work, so that when we find materials with high recycled content, we don't just use them for the environmental showcase projects. We use them for all of our projects. High efficiency lighting and high efficiency energy systems are something that are becoming more and more standard. You pay a certain premium in the beginning, and then the operational costs are much lower over time, and that's something that we're going to look at, life cycle costing, that will help us understand the balance between the first cost and the long-term cost, and we'll come up with the best solution for the budget that we have. We will be using LED lighting, high-efficiency lighting that can burn for 10 to 20 years without ever being replaced. We will use energy recovery units so that when we need to bring fresh air into the building during the winter, we'll balance that with the exhaust air so that it's actually transferring the energy from one to the other and not bringing outdoor cold air into the building. So those are the areas that we typically look at: high recycled content, regional materials, and high efficiency systems. The building code has caught up with a lot of the environmental movement pushes to bring high insulated exteriors to buildings. We would be putting a highly insulated building in that would have much higher R values in the roof than they've ever had in the past, because we know heat rises. We'll be using fans in the gym to push that heat back down and make sure that that's at a level where people are actually going to feel it. But we'll be working to do everything we can while balancing the economy of the budget.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kim Rose, and I own a business in Wakefield, right across from the Guild, the health club, right across the street there. Question, please. The 2 fitness rooms, what are the dimensions of that, of each of them?
So the larger multipurpose room is 2,000 square feet, and the smaller or the medium multipurpose room is, did you say 900 square feet?
So I can go to the Guild right now, and since the same exact fitness equipment is going from point A to point B, I should be able to maybe find the same square footage at the Guild now?
Okay, just to clarify, so the fitness room equipment, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
That is actually about 400 square feet. That's the smallest multipurpose room, 330? 330 square feet. That's actually probably a little over half the size of what the fitness room at the Guild is now. The intent is to move some cardio machines, maybe 3-4 cardio machines max, into this room, which is quite small, and a universal machine, which currently exists in the fitness room at the Guild, and to move that over to this building where all of the athletic and fitness programming will take place.
My concerns are not with kids playing basketball or with school teams getting their practice space. When you say seniors, I've got a large senior population. When you say fitness and exercise rooms and programming, that concerns me greatly, and that's a taxpayer dollar going against small business. My other bit of knowledge is, or PS for you guys, is if you think that $353,000 is going to cover a building of that size, you better, I can't imagine. I've done it for 36 years, and there's no projected increase in the cost from continuation until 2018, I think. You've got to be kidding me. So as easily as you went from last month to this month, at needing another million, by time 2016 comes, and 17 comes, and 18, your operations budget is going to be much more. Thank you.
My name is Bob Kavanaugh. I'm going to say this for the first time. I'm a senior citizen. I'll be getting my Medicare card in a couple of months. I was born in this town. I've lived in this town practically my whole life. I owe everything I am to this town and my family. The recreation department is as much and was as much a part of my life as anything. There are some people in this room that you can point the finger to or at as to the reason why we're here today. Right there. Kathy Lallam. We used to know her as Kathy Parker. When she came into this town, she was one of the most approachable people that could ever have been in that job, and I hear she still is today. The programs that she added over the years, people went to her with an idea. She took it and she went with it. She connected everybody to the Recreation Commission, to Tim Wolkin, to Andy Nada, and now Terry. She's the historian almost. I'm going to give you a typical day back in late 1950s and early 1960s. And anybody here, feel free to give me the hook. We couldn't wait to get home from elementary school because we wanted to go to the Guild. I stood in the Guild for the first time last week, looking into that gymnasium and seeing and hearing all the voices of the past. One thing I knew, but I realized last week, what went on in that gym, you don't see much anymore. That gym, as small as it was, the burns we got on the back of our legs from the radiators, people that are here, you'll remember, everybody had second-degree blisters on the mid-calf from the radiators. I mean, it was all we had, though. There were people in there that connected from the poorest people in town to the most wealthiest people in town. Diversity, I didn't know what diversity was when I was a kid. I didn't know what the word meant because it was always there. I don't see that anymore. And I can speak from a lot of different angles. When I sat down, tried to think about this the last few days, I tried to think about what angle to talk about. I played Little League, I played basketball, I played football, I played soccer, I played track, and I played baseball, all in school. Now you say, how did you do that? I went to 2 different high schools. Some people don't know that I moved over the town line about 100 yards for a couple of years. But I look at that as a valuable experience. I was a president of South County Youth Soccer for quite a few years. I coached high school soccer for over 30 years. I coached junior high basketball. I coached junior high track. Which sport do I like the most? No, Josh, it's not soccer. I like them all. He's one of my former players. Everything that I saw back then, I wish that back in the 50s and the 60s, I wish every child could experience today. It was a feeling of community. You felt like you belonged with the gang, no matter what side of the tracks you were from. And I don't see that anymore. As a president of South County Youth Soccer, it used to kill me to not see people out there signing their kids up because they couldn't afford it. And that happens at a lot of different stages. It's happening with the adults now in town. We have some great clubs in town. Riverbend has been there for a long time. It's a great part of this community. So is the Y. Okay, those people will continue to go there. I have no doubt about that. But we have a large segment of this community that are out there from the spring months to the fall, and then you don't see them. It's because they go home and they stay in for the winter unless the weather's good. You'd be surprised how many people are out running in this community at 6 o'clock in the morning, in the dark, in the winter, or are there with walking groups. They're all over the place, and I know because I used to do it. I used to run through town for 30 years in the dark, in the morning. Those groups have become larger and larger. I saw a indoor walking club. That's a great idea. There are walking clubs right now, but they're informal. They go out to eat together, they spend money in the town, they go out for coffee and breakfast together, and a lot of them are senior citizens. And now that I've become a senior citizen, one of the things that I don't see a lot of offerings in the town for senior citizens. I was shocked when I turned 50 quite a few years ago. I went to Fox Point Boys Club every morning to play basketball, Sunday morning to play basketball. When I walked in there the first time, there were 20 people from South Kingstown there. I was shocked. I thought I was the only one that was going to be bothered to drive up there. But there were about 20 people, and as the time went on, there were more. I'm not privy to how many are there now because I'm a lot older. I used to go to Cranston and play in leagues in Cranston because there were no leagues here. Now, when the 50s and the 60s, you got to remember, there was football, there was basketball, there was baseball in the school, and there was Little League. That was it. There were no other sports in the town for the youth or for the schools. That was it. And if you were a girl, you didn't get to participate until the early 1970s with Title IX. Thank goodness that came on board. Those kids that were able to participate back then were better off than the kids now. That sounds crazy, but it is. There are more offerings now, but those kids get less time. We used to go to the gym on Saturday, the Guild on Saturday, at 8 o'clock every Saturday. We'd go bowl in a league at the bowling alley. And it was the same group that left the bowling alley that went to the Guild and played basketball for 2.5 hours. We had that much time in the gym. And then they'd throw us out, and we'd go down to Mumford Elementary School, which used to be Narragansett Junior High, and Pete Kearns. He used to open the doors from 9 to 4. We'd bring our lunch, and we'd never eat it. We'd stay there all day and play. No adults telling us, you're on this team, you're on that team. We did it ourselves. Leadership qualities were developed. Nobody argued, nobody fought. When new kids came, they were welcome, no matter who they were. I made a tremendous amount of friends in those gyms, and those are connections I've had throughout my whole life. That's what it used to be like, and I wish that for every kid. But what's happened is this. I was a teacher, health education teacher for 14 years at the junior high. I developed the health education curriculum there and stressed fitness and cardiovascular health, along with a whole lot of other things. All those kids now, they're in their mid-50s. Some of those kids when I first started. I know who those kids are. I know what they do. I know what they did. I know they would eat a place like this up. Those are the people that are out there right now that are not being serviced. Okay, those people will come to play in a basketball league. They will come to play in a volleyball league. They will come to use that walking track. They will still go to Riverbend. They will still go to the Y. They will still go to the fitness centers. They will still do that. But these are activities that are going to bring people together on teams. They're going out of town to do that now. I've got to add a little bit to that project summary. That project summary says that this plan was developed 10 years ago. Not true. This all started in the late 1980s. I sat down with Bob Smith, the principal of South Kingstown Junior High, John Champion, God rest his soul, and a few others to discuss what they were going to do with the postage stamp-sized gym that was a little bigger than the Guild at Curtis Corner Middle School or the junior high. There was an addition plan for that school. We all got excited that now this gym could be improved. There could be locker rooms with showers that really worked, and that they could increase the size of the library there. And the original plan was this: to take that library and move it into the gymnasium space and to build a gym off the back of the school. That plan was scrapped for lack of money. Then the plan was to improve the gym, try to increase its size by knocking out one of the back walls and improving the locker room. Well, by the time the project was complete, there was no money. They didn't do that. They did not increase the size of the library. But there was a placeholder on the tongues of everyone that was involved in this project that down the road there would be a community gymnasium proposed to probably be situated behind Curtis Corner. So when this first started off, that was in the late 80s, early 90s. So this has been talked about a long time. And I'm going to give you a comparison of how crazy the scheduling is. Terry, I don't envy you at all. Terry, I don't envy you at all. Kathy, I don't envy you at all. If I look here and I see that your programs have increased by 30-some%, you must be ready to commit hara-kiri. Because when I was in Terry's position and worked with Kathy and Rex and Tim and Andy, I wasn't popular at all, and they weren't either, because we couldn't give people not what they wanted, but what they needed. I went with to Kathy and a couple of my friends, I'll give them credit, Tony Wojcik and Mike Chadwick, and said to Kathy, we need a basketball league for these kids in this town. There's no basketball. That's crazy. There used to be, but there's no more. So she took it, and the basketball program exploded, and then people were calling me at the school asking for a half-hour practice time. I can't give it to you. Kathy has to give it to you. Well, I didn't get practice last week because school was called off because of a snowstorm, so that means I can't practice for 2 weeks. Okay, and that went on all the time. And that's just one little situation. If you can't relate to that, relate to this. I went to Arthur Campbell in 1989, and I said to Arthur, he was a superintendent, and I said, Arthur, I don't know what to do. We've got junior high baseball, we've got JV baseball, we've got varsity baseball, we've got Babe Ruth, we've got senior Babe Ruth, we've got a Legion team, and now we've got adults that want to play baseball, and we had one field, Old Mountain. That's all we had. 1989, we had one field. You know where they all practiced? They didn't, because that was the only field. Someone was always playing, and there was a sandlot field over behind Curtis Corner that John Champion used for the junior high team once in a while, but that was it. Now, I'm using that as an example to tell you what they're going through with all the other sports and all the other activities and all the other programs. It's probably the same thing. With the Curtis Corner Playfields project, we solved, and the Broad Rock Playfields project, we solved most, and the tennis courts, the addition at Old Mountain Field, we added the upper court, and the courts over at Curtis Corner, and the courts up at Broad Rock. We solved, as a town, most of the needs for the outdoor activities. So now what do? You've got all these people all hepped up. You've got them doing exactly what you want a community to do. Get out there and stay fit and be social. And then in the wintertime, now what? I know, because I told Steve when I came in here, Steve wondered where I'd been all these years. People think I moved away. Well, I've become a hermit. Okay? And that's not all that bad, but I do that by choice. There's a lot of people in this community that don't. They would love to get out and do something with a facility like this. And I have to pick a bone with Steve and apologize to Steve, Because when we didn't build this after the first referendum, I was livid. And we had the second referendum, and I wish I had the schematics that we had for the second referendum, because we actually had graphs, colored graphs. Andy Notter and I put them together. We got the stuff from Kathy and the schools. We put it all together. We showed where every single minute was being used in every single space in this community. That was before you had a 30-some% increase. So I can't imagine what you go through now. But indoors, okay, is long overdue. I know Kim's a small business. I know what the Y goes through. My whole family's in small business in this town, and they have been for years, okay? I don't think the majority of people will object to paying such a small amount for such a big dividend. I know there's people that probably don't want it, I know. But here's what I have to say to you, Steve. We didn't do it after the first bond referendum because the economy wasn't good. And I have to give Alan Lord credit too. Those two sat down with budgets and pulled rabbits out of a hat. Okay? And sometimes you don't know how they did it. After the second referendum, I thought, wow, it's finally going to happen. It's passed twice. Well, then everything crashed. But I know there was talk, senior center, which my mother uses all the time, and she loves it. That was the ideal place to put this. They were waiting to purchase the property up there. The economy got better, and believe me, when Terry was reading the figures about this and the debt service, I want to make it clear. Steve chose not to build this because we couldn't afford it. Not he alone, but he's one of the decision makers. Now he's saying he's pretty sure we can afford it. And we can afford it because other things have been paid for, and this will slide into that place. So that's why there won't be a tax increase for this particular piece. People say, how can you do this without a tax increase? That's because something else has already been paid off, or something's been reinvested, and this is going to slide right in. Is that true? More or less? Okay. Having this at the senior center, I can see seniors in there during the day. That senior center is great. I don't use it. My mom uses it all the time. I'm right now still for active recreation and not passive recreation, and I know a lot of people my age. Ask Ray Carr sitting right there. Senior citizens today are a lot different than senior citizens 50 years ago. Those people, me included, think they're still 40. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you think like that and you act like that, I think you're going to live a lot longer with a better quality of life. And I think that's what this is all about. This is about a quality of life. Okay? That's the quality of life in this town. Nobody in this town should have to travel great distances to participate in other activities, okay, that could be held here. And to me, this is long overdue, and I hope you people out there vote for this because I only see benefits from it. And I have one answer to your question. Where's the man that asked the question a minute ago? Were you up here before? I was. Okay. The Broad Rock Playfields project, when it was built, we had the same question that you just asked. How are the kids going to access that without crossing the street and coming down on the sidewalk? Well, that's what we were hoping would happen, that this property would be purchased someday and then kids could access right through the field. So you could probably put a path through there. Sorry, taking up so much time, but had to talk about it.
I speak too loud into these microphones. Carol Hagan McEntee, I'm Vice President of the Town Council, and I am very excited about what I'm seeing here tonight. I want to piggyback off of Bob a little bit. I've experienced the overload of activities in South Kingstown with my own kids. I have 3 kids who were very active in basketball, baseball, football, track, and my daughter, what did she play? Softball and field hockey. And since the boys were young, this issue has been a fact that there has not been enough gym space, especially for basketball. And in the wintertime, I would take them to Warwick for indoor baseball. So they're now 24 and 21, and my daughter is 30, so this has been going on for a long time. And when they come back, and let me clarify this, we also belong to the YMCA, so not only did they play interscholastic sports, but they were in rec leagues since they were young, and they were also at the Y. There was just never enough time to play ball. And I want to say what a great thing it was. They weren't home on the video games, which they do too. They do that also. But the socialization and the healthy lifestyle has made them the adults they are today. And I thank the town for that, and I fully support this program. And I hope the public does too, because if we don't keep the kids active, I'm also a lawyer. I see them in family court all the time. Let's keep them healthy, active, out of court, going in the right direction. Oh, one more thing about the seniors. We need it too. I'm not going to tell you I'm a senior yet, but the new 60 is the new 40, and we know that. 50 is the new 30. We're very active. We need to get out there, stay active. It's the only way we're going to live a long and healthy life. And walking on the treadmill at the Y is a very lonely experience unless you feel like watching the news. So in the winter, it would be great to have groups that could get off the street and inside the gym, walking the track. So I am in full support of this project.
Good evening. My name is Meg Healy. I also serve on the council, and I also have had 2 kids extremely involved in sports through the high school programs, both my son and my daughter. And I look at this community gym. Both of my kids go to Riverbend. I don't think that it's going to be an inhibiting factor to a facility like that, because it's a whole different focus. And I have to say, when my children are younger, although they're in college now, I served with the Blessing family with so many years in Little League. I was treasurer of the Little League. And one of the things that really spoke to me and my husband in terms of baseball season was we had to rent space at URI for the kids to have their tryouts for an entire weekend, which was extremely costly, and it was paid for by the Little League. If we have a facility here in town, even though we might have to pay a partial payment, that could help facilitate all of these youth programs, why wouldn't that be a win-win situation? Why wouldn't that be something that is just the best thing that could happen to our youth population and enhance our older population? I hope people believe in this. I hope people do support this, because this is something that is going to be beneficial to the town. We talk about healthy places by design. We talk about walking paths. We talk about bike paths. How could we not do something that is just instrumental? So I am in support of this as well. Thank you for your time.
Jim O'Neill, Town Council. A number of years ago, after the first couple bond issues passed, we didn't know the economy was going to turn sour. But we got very lucky, and sometimes you make your own luck. But the Dominic Savio property came up for sale. And we weren't sure if the diocese was going to, A, sell it to us, share some of the fields with us, but the point was that the council, myself included, and Steve Alford, this was an opportunity. We told him to spend whatever it would take. And he did. But all that money that we spent on that property, Steve found a way to make it actually, I think, almost cost-free. But what the important part of the Dominic Savio and what we're here tonight for is that this is the opportunity for this community to connect all the dots. This is a campus now. If we can pass this in the fall, get this gym up, you've got the schools, the Y, the baseball fields. We've just got an agreement with the owner of the Commons to build and complete the bike path. We have a path now to go to the Old Mountain Field. We have connected this community, and a lot of us aren't thinking about that, but frankly, to me, it's a home run, and I certainly hope the voters understand this and give us a unanimous support this November 4th. Thank you.
My name is Scott Miller. I've been a member of the South Kingstown School Committee since 1992. And it was an interesting experience to listen to Mr. Kavanaugh recite a history. I don't often hear people talk about a history before I started. And I must confess that I am in the category of senior citizen now, so I look forward to the opportunity to use this as a senior citizen. I want to say three things. First, I really appreciate the amount of work that went into this planning process. Kevin and I have an opportunity to see one another with considerable frequency at the school committee. And every time I see him, he says, "Oh my God, we had 2 more meetings," and they went on forever. It is a lot of work. I think you've done really wonderful planning in the name of the town of South Kingstown. This has been a challenging project. It's been around for a long time. Second thing I want to say is I appreciate the work that Steve Alford and his staff have done in this project. We looked at it 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but honestly, when I joined the school committee in 1992, we had a presentation from Arthur Campbell about the needs of the youth programming and how difficult it was to find time for them. I suspect now that that was Mr. Kavanaugh feeding Mr. Campbell information about, right? In the end, this project got authorized and then it couldn't get done. I think that Mr. Alford made some tough calls. What I appreciate is he made tough calls and never let it slip away. This has stayed on the agenda, waiting until we got to a place where we could turn it into a reality. In my judgment, Mr. Alford made the right call in putting a hold on that project. We didn't have the money. He's made another right call this time. This is the time to do that. The last thing I want to say is that, in my view, this is the kind of investment that strong communities make in themselves. This is the kind of thing that is not only an expenditure, but this produces dividends. It produces dividends because eventually Mr. Kavanaugh will recognize he's old enough to go use it. It will be an advantage for each of the citizens in South Kingstown, and as we improve the quality of life in South Kingstown, we become a more valuable community. My hope is that with the support of the town council, with the support of the school committee, with the leadership of the staff, My hope is that this is the time that we will make this a reality. Thank you for your planning work.
Good evening. About 15 minutes ago, I was watching Charlie Rose. And then a couple of minutes later, I turned to Channel 28. And I was all excited. And I'm still excited, but even though, because I'm here now, I'm watching some good stuff here, listening to some very important things being said by people that are involved in the community. But I'm here for a different reason. I turned on the TV and put it on Channel 28, and the town council was on, but they didn't have the date. And you know why. Do you know why I got excited? Does anybody on the town council, do you know why I got excited? No, you don't, huh? No, because you're not doing what I want you to do. I thought the town council was on TV, and I've been pushing for it for years now. They took it off because we don't think we can afford it in the town of South Kingstown, but Narragansett can afford it. I don't get it. But anyway, I'm not being negative now. I think this is great. This is a town council meeting, isn't it? Or not? Is this something else, a planning board? Oh, recreation. The greatest thing in the world. I hope I can keep hitting the ball and whatever until I'm 85, like I've seen some guys do. I don't know if I'll make it or not unless I start eating a better diet, though. But anyway, I thought I'd get up and just share that with you because I still feel that way. And I got that excited about seeing the council on TV that I said I got to come over here right now, no matter what I'm watching or what I'm doing, and no matter how tired I am. Because I believe it's unbelievable that we don't this meeting should be televised. Is it televised live today? Oh, it's live? Well, I don't know what channel it was on. I didn't try to.
It's being streamed, that's the council meetings are streamed. It will be televised.
Yeah. Well, in the days of computer science and the technology we have today, I have no excuse for not having things live. They have things live from Syria every day. We can't have a live telecast of our own town council meeting, and I just think it should be done. And I came over because I thought it had been done, and now I have to live with the reality that it hasn't been done. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Turtelot Bissett. If you want to hear an old piece of history, that's me. Bob and Stephanie are my children. I was the first generation. They were the second. My grandchildren, all 6 of them have been through this system. My 9 great-grandchildren are in the system right now. So I'm really looking forward to the future. I can go way back and wish we were back there. There were 900 people in this town when I was first here, and my kids were in school, and we knew everybody, and they still had drop-in basketball at the Guild. I think it's very important to go back to drop-in sports like that for kids who are not on teams. Not everybody can be on a team and go to practice and do this and do that. But occasionally, they used to have like Saturday mornings and sometimes on Sundays at the Guild, a drop-in time. They had a period of time, and there would always be someone there, but it was not organized. Everything is so organized now, they have no time to play. Like when my kids grew up here, we had vacant lots all around us. The boys would all get together after school. They'd play ball in the lots. Well, it's really sad because there are no more lots anyplace. There's no place for them to play. But I have great-grandchildren that live in this town now that play baseball half the time in the street because there is no place to play. They have like the first base in their yard, the third base is in the yard across the street. You know, so we really need to do something about that, and that everybody has a place, that you don't. I think when we first started, I think Little League just started here when Bob, these are my 2 two of my children, Bob and Stephanie, here. But it was a lot different. There were bathhouses at Old Up Mountain Field, and we used to go swimming over there. And we'd come out and we'd have brown bathing suits. Well, people used to tell us it was chemicals or something, but we didn't have sewers then. Well, they gave Red Cross swimming lessons over there. They did, you know. And after a while, that ended. But I'll tell you something that upset me this year. My house is on Oak Street, and it faces Old Mountain. So everybody comes to my house to watch the fireworks, because I have a perfect deck out and back to that. But the thing that really upset me this year was the kids having to pay before the fireworks to shoot baskets. I know it's a town who did that, $2 or $5 for 2 shots. And some of my great-grandchildren went over there not knowing this and didn't have any money. And they were not the only ones. Then they told them if they paid for the first 2 shots, they could have 2 more for another 5.
So Nancy, I can explain that. As part of our 4th of July celebration, the Recreation Department held a contest, a basketball foul shooting contest. And as part of the contest, you pay a couple of bucks, I don't know what the fee was, and you shoot 10 shots, and there are prizes that are won. It was part of the program plan for offsetting costs of the fireworks event. It wasn't mandatory. The rec department utilizes the basketball court during the 4th of July celebration as kind of the headquarters for staff and where people meet, and we coordinate the program. But part of the...
As I know, the Caroline Hazard Trust, which I believe still has an interest over there.
That's
I'm
correct.
not sure exactly how it works now. But when I was in high school, and even up when my kids were in school, you were never allowed to charge for anything on that field. And they charged for tables. Somebody told me there was hardly anybody at the tables at the fireworks. They were, I don't know what it was, 150 for a big one or 75 for a small. That's not right, and that is not what that was intended for. We never, when I was in high school, and my kids were in high school, and you went to games there, there was somebody with a basket that said donation. If you wanted to, you could put something in that basket. They could not charge admission.
And that's what we do at the fireworks as well,
Well, it wasn't
with
that
donation
way
baskets for...
Because I know kids that went there that couldn't play. But aside from that, and the Guild, I have great affection for the Guild. I learned to cook there. I learned to dance there. My girls took ballet lessons there. We all learned ballroom dancing. Now, they teach ballroom dancing in the towers now, once a week upstairs in the towers. We don't have anything like that anymore.
We do have just so you know, we do have some ballroom dance programs as well at the
A lot
Guild,
of
but
kids-
certainly...
This was regular, and this was, a lot of kids, girls took ballet. My girls hated it. Two of my girls took it, they didn't like it, you know, but we exposed them to that, so they, about 2 times, and then that was it, you know. But anyway, I do have great affection for the Guild, you know, and I worry about what's going to happen to it. And that's where the drop-in basketball was. Saturday mornings was out there. Anybody could go. And I'm hoping that they will do something like this at this facility, because not everybody can be on a team. Some don't want to be, some are not good enough, you know. But that's all I have to say. I could tell you a lot of stories. I've been here a long time, but anyway, this is a very good idea. Thank you. I will take that with me.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Tansey. I have a couple of questions, and I just want to reiterate my feelings about what Keith Forhyben had brought up as well about with the sidewalk access. We had a bike swap day a couple years back, and we rode our bicycles there. And it was treacherous, really, getting down Broad Rock with a family. We're allowed to ride our bicycles. There's nothing prohibiting families or individuals in our town from riding their bicycles on the sidewalk, but the access, I have safety concerns of getting to those fields and how people are going to be able to access them safely. If we're talking about children traveling there on their own, the walking path that kind of cuts across those fields is wonderful. But, we want to draw people from the neighborhoods as well. We want to be drawing people from all throughout the town, hopefully, and encouraging them to be able to ride their bikes and walk their bikes safely. So I would love to see considerable safety enhancements that lead on the roads coming into any facility that may be built. I was just reading through some of the PowerPoint presentation, and I see that, I don't use the Guild as often as I should. It is a wonderful resource. So if I'm not understanding something, feel free to correct it. But there was mention in this handout tonight that there are a number of scholarships that are offered so that people, regardless of their ability to pay, can participate in programs that are offered at the Guild. And if we're increasing the number of programs through the Recreation Center now, are we also enhancing our budget to be able to adequately provide for the increase in the need for scholarships? Is one question.
That's a good question. What I would clarify is that the scholarship opportunities for residents of the town, primarily youth, are granted through the Friends of South Kingstown Parks and Recreation, which is a nonprofit support arm to the department. They're not granted through a town budget. The Friends have ongoing fundraising to support scholarships. They'll continue to be supportive. They certainly have a fund to transition to a new facility as well. As a matter of fact, currently the athletic programs and youth who are participating in those programs benefit from the Friends scholarships. So that the intention is to continue that, and the Friends has the capacity to do that.
And they have the capacity, so they've discussed this, to your knowledge, are you aware of them having a plan to expand their outreach?
It's really not about expanding outreach as much as it is they have the funding to be able to do that.
Okay.
And they'll adjust as needed for the new facility, but currently they certainly can support the needs of those who come into the Guild and are interested in
okay, and I was reading,
scholarships.
thank you. I was reading through the paper, and it said that there's talk about using a punch card for frequent visitors. There's currently a $2 drop-in fee for things. So in listening to the conversation that people were having, I was getting the sense that these were going to be free times, both literally, meaning no payment. It's a recreation center to be open to the public, as well as free time for kids to come in and play. Mm-hmm. So after school, kids would just be wandering in and playing. And reading the papers that were provided, I don't get the sense that there is any real free, unstructured time. It said something about use by residents if it's not currently reserved, but it's not as though there'll be supervised opportunities for children to play. So this is, it seemed from the conversation of people, speaking in favor of this, that this was just a great place for kids to go after school. They're out at, whatever time they're done, and they would just drop in here, but it's not like it is a child care. The Y charges a fee for a service that they provide because it's adult supervision. So this isn't going to be a free, child care opportunity. So comparing, I think, those two services isn't necessarily a fair comparison. And I just have concerns about other facilities within the town needing improvements. I haven't sat in on a full set of budget meetings in quite some time, but from what I recall, there's significant need at our high school for upgrading facilities there. And I just wonder, is this perhaps not better done to improve the existing facilities and maybe expand the facilities there? it could be all of this, but at the same time improving our existing facilities. I don't know if we're even having home basketball games currently, because our floor was so poor, in such poor repair for so many years, that we weren't able, if my recollection serves me, we weren't able to host home basketball games. And no? Okay.
I'm not certain of that, but Terry could speak to that. I think that the high school has held home basketball games.
Teresa, that was never an issue, and Bob can talk to that before I got here, but since I've been here, and I know I was there with part of Bob's tenure, that's
Okay.
never been an issue. But Bob?
What happened was, it happened on two different occasions. One, it happened when I was in school, and the same thing happened again while I was athletic director. We got water under the floor of the gymnasium. It was a roof problem. Water came down the wall, went under the floor, and we went in the next morning and there were moguls. So the gymnasium had to be closed while it was repaired for one whole season.
Okay, so
That was just a freak storm that happened.
Okay, yeah, I just recall there being something about like dead spots in the gym, and that there were temporary adjustments that were made to the floor in order to.
Yeah, we resurfaced the floor approximately 4 years ago now. And to speak to the dead spots, it's an old gym. There are dead spots all over the place in any gym in any town, any place in the country. So there are always dead spots. But yes, we resurfaced the floor approximately 4 years ago.
Okay, so I just am interested in seeing how this facility, I don't want to see the town making an investment in something that's wonderful and exciting and shiny and new when we, there are other needs within the community. So I'm glad to hear that the basketball court is not the issue that I thought it once was. And I just am wondering, I saw the list of all the excess capacity that exists within the town and the lack of available fields. And I don't know, there was a list below that spoke about all of these other things that we currently have no fields for. Is there any quantification of how much need is not being met? There's numbers of currently enrolled, and then, the facility. There weren't enough handouts, so I don't have one myself, but there was a chart that had,
Right, and that chart was also in the presentation, but you're speaking of gym space, I'm assuming, not field space? What we're talking about is having enough indoor athletic facilities to accommodate the need or the demand of the community. Over the past 20 years, and I think probably some of the commentary from the public speaks better to this than I, but there's been a constant need from the school side and the recreation department side to fulfill the demands of the community.
Do we have numbers, though, just as far as what the excess, what the need is? I mean, I know that when Narragansett went through this process to do their community athletic center, they had a full study that was done, multiple inputs, and they had quantified the actual number of hours that were lacking for each sport, and how those needs, those specific needs that they identified would be met with the building of the athletic center in Narragansett, which is an outdoor thing. But I'm just wondering if there are numbers to support this need. The fact that the classes fill up is great, but what is the excess capacity?
I don't have numbers that I can share with you this evening. Certainly, the testimony of the youth athletic leagues, the parents in the community, and the members of the community in general, as a constant year after year after year petition for additional space has not subsided. It's only grown. Can I give you those actual numbers of who we're not meeting? No, I don't have a log of or statistics of those who have come to the rec department or come through the school department and said, we need space for this many hours to practice for this many weeks during the season.
I just want to make sure that if we're making an investment this big, that we do know that, it's going to be enough to have one, the 4 courts, and that we're building it big enough, and that in 5 years, we're not going to need something that's more substantial, because we don't know what. Well, I think having those numbers.
I hate to, to have numbers, I guess, is a wonderful thing to have numbers, but I can only give you my own personal testimony as somebody who's coached in the recreation basketball and the travel basketball programs in this town for the past 6 years. Parents are dying. Kathy, how many times do I come into your office during the season? I need another hour.
Yeah.
I need another hour. And I'm just one guy. There's your numbers.
Well, that's
and I'm telling you now that in order for you to say, well, I want to make sure that we don't think we may need something bigger down the road. I'm telling you now, we do. And it should not stop us from building this facility, because as people have testified, this is the ideal location. You asked about, well, maybe we should fix the high school, and the floor's got dead spots. Wouldn't we spend the money there? Where are you going to put this building on the high school property? There's no room. Curtis Corner Middle School gym is nothing. It's tiny. Those kids can't even shoot a three-pointer from the corner. They're out of bounds. But where would we put this facility on that campus? We can't. So I agree with what you're saying. Trust me, the numbers are there. And your ideas of saying, well, we should just spend it on the high school or send it on the middle school is great in theory, but we don't have the space at those places. This is the perfect space. And I guarantee you, the minute this facility is up and running, we are going to be clamoring to build another one, because the need is there. I travel all over New England with my son's basketball teams. I know friends who travel all over Rhode Island playing soccer. The amount of money that the parents in this community spend in other communities is ridiculous. And I would love to spend that money right here in our town. We don't have the facility. And the minute we have this one, we're going to need another one. I guarantee it.
And I think that that's part of what my point is. I'm not saying that I'm in opposition to this. It's simply that without a quantifiable need,
It's there.
Are we wise enough then? Are we wise to build it larger now? I'm just making sure, because, I will hear, and we will all hear here in perpetuity about why did we build Broad Rock School and now we have another one closed. I want to be able to say with confidence, when people ask me about what my opinion is on this, that we're doing this because we have a quantifiable need. You're speaking anecdotally, and I'm asking for numbers. And I know we've all heard it in this room. Any one of us who's a decision maker within this community has heard, why do we have schools closed that when we just built Broad Rock? So I don't know if you all want to be the ones who are responsible for, saying we must, and it turns out to not be right. I'm simply asking for numbers to verify and data, and I don't think that that's too much to ask. So I'm not speaking out against this project. I'm simply asking questions as a community member who wants to better understand what the intent is.
I think we're mixing a lot of different subjects, so it's difficult for a committee to deal with it. And sitting on the school committee table, we deal with that a lot too. And this committee is dealing with the gym. You're looking at some other issues. We had some other people come up to the microphone and have other issues. And they're mixing together different issues. I mean, bringing up the Broad Rock issue is a perfect example. I looked at those numbers 6 ways to Sunday. We needed to build Broad Rock at the time. Absolutely. It was either that or trailers. So you could make the argument, well, maybe you could have done trailers for a few years, but you're trying to predict student enrollment, and we do have those predictions, but we had to build Broad Rock at the time. Regarding the high school, the town council has actually been great about the high school. We have invested in the high school. We just did another capital budget. Scott, I think it was $1 million we put to the high school in the coming years. I know we just did the hallways this past summer at like $350,000. So they're different numbers. I mean, that's schools, this is town. It's a different, it's apples and oranges in that sense.
I only brought that up because there were numbers that justify it, so that you as community decision makers said, no, 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 this is what the number said. We had enrollment projections at this, and I'm just asking for the numbers for this. And I don't mean to, I'm not saying that I'm opposed to this. I just want to understand it.
Yeah, I'd like to address two of the issues. First, this is a $1 million bond that's on for November. You're certainly aware there's $4 million for school improvements. There was a needs assessment conducted for all of the school facilities. That was completed, and it showed a potential expenditure of $10.2 million. We have developed within the capital improvement program a $6.2 million program over a 6-year period. That will address the needs of the schools, particularly the high school. The high school is in need of additional work. It's not just the hallways that have to be done. It's the third floor with the chem labs. It's also the corridors. It's the restrooms. All of that's incorporated into the capital improvement program, and there's a necessity for people to vote yes for the $4 million in additional bonding. We brought that up earlier tonight. There's $10.55 million that we're looking at over the next 6 years. That's a comprehensive capital improvement program. It's not just for this facility, but it's part of what the community recognizes through the council as being those program dollars that needed to be expended. We've held back on some of the capital construction for schools because there's a moratorium in place at the General Assembly.
I'm well aware of it, and I fought hard this budget session, even putting in a budget
All I'm saying
amendment
to
to
you
try
is
to remove that.
But understand, what we have to do is we have to work within the guidelines of what the state provides in terms of our ability to borrow money and to receive even a 35% reimbursement. Second point, you bring up Broad Rock Road. Broad Rock Road's right-of-way is not going to change in width. There is no land other than if we were to condemn property on both sides to be able to put in a bike lane. What our objective was when we put in the Broad Rock Fields and the Broad Rock School was to connect with a bike path so that people all the way from Old Mountain Field could get to the Broad Rock School without getting on any of the streets. We also put sidewalks on the side of the street that we could, that would be ADA responsible. So we're going to try to work with what we have as far as existing real estate. But no, we're not going to be able to put bike lanes on Broad Rock Road within the existing confines of that right-of-way. That's not going to happen. It didn't happen when we discussed it, when the Broad Rock School was under development construction as well.
And
I think we're bringing issues in to this facility. Access is important to us. We need to address the access within the reality of the real estate that we can work with.
And my concerns can be addressed within the reality of what we have, because we're doing a design down the Dominic DeSalvo Road. I don't have the full map in front of me, but the St. Dominic Road, are we going to be making sure that that road has a sidewalk space on it so that people will be able to connect from Broad Rock? Are we going to implement the sharrows that we've talked about in front of this, in front of the town council in past, so that we have safe access? I never once mentioned a bike path. I want to find ways that we can enhance the existing infrastructure so that people can travel safely. And I think, by connecting them with sharrows and other, forms of safety enhancements, that's entirely possible, and I want that to be part of the thought process as we develop this. And I think that those are considerations that are important, and I think that as a member of Healthy Places by Design, it's things that we've brought up at the table over and over again, and I just want to make sure that in this forum, as we're planning a significant improvement in our infrastructure within the town, that those same considerations are being brought up. So I thank you for your time.
but there's no sidewalks on Broadwalk. It's a bigger issue. $8 million. What?
No, I think to address your point, we talked extensively about the pedestrian path that comes through. We talked about how we're getting to the road and across the road to the ball fields, to the senior center, and connecting it to what is happening on the other side of the road. So we had talked pretty extensively about pedestrian movement around the symbiotic relationship with the ball fields, the overflow parking at the rec center, and how that can be used, traffic coming from the senior center that could be using the walking track across the street, bike traffic that comes to the site. We actually had a last-minute design effort led by Joe to make sure that that pedestrian path did not cross any traffic as it came through, and that was safe. And we actually redesigned the drop-off area just before we came to the meeting at the end of last week. So we have certainly talked extensively about that connection and how we connect all of the things that happen here. That was one of the reasons why the site's been so important, because there's so much happening, because the ball fields are across the street and the senior center is there. And just to address your earlier point, we've also talked about room for expansion. The building was cited with the ability to expand to the north and add future additional gymnasium multipurpose rooms. So we specifically pulled the building down and kept that area open up here where there's potential, and looked across to the east to where future fields could go in and how those would be connected as well.
Thank you. But I think the sidewalk coming from Broad Rock, you didn't mention that when you were just discussing.
The simple answer is there's another sidewalk on the south
On
side.
the senior center side.
The redundancy to have a second sidewalk, inherently, you're going to pull from, excuse me, on
St. Dominic.
Yeah, St. Dominic. So,
And I think the reason why we never talked about it is because we were always talking about kids coming from Broad Rock Middle School. They're not going to go out to Broad Rock Road and around. They're going to cut through the path that they do now anyway. And that's going to be kept and feed right into the building. So that's probably why that particular issue is that. Because we're looking at them coming through the field, not going out.
We show crosswalks coming from one side to the other.
They already park over there all the time anyway, all the juniors.
Yeah, but for all of the public to have access, particularly we're talking about winter access, so for someone to be walking along the road is a hazard. So, I mean, oh, those are the rock walls, okay. So you're saying there won't be anything on the right-hand side, there'll be the crosswalk to get to in order to cross over. I mean, those were my questions, and I appreciate you addressing them. Thank you. Oh, there was the punch card. I didn't understand the pricing for the punch card.
So as far as the existing programs that happen at the Guild, particularly the fitness center, we use it for our yoga program as well. People can purchase a punch card and utilize it for X number of visits so that they don't have to pay $2 every time they come to the fitness room. So we do have that structure in place for drop-in. Rather than dropping in, they pay in advance, and they can use it. They can hold it for 5 years if they want and come back once a year. I think as we look at this new facility, we certainly have to look at our structure in terms of what program fees would cost. We would also now have the opportunity at times to look at drop-in programs that are a no-cost program. Currently at the Guild, we have drop-in basketball that I believe is $1 per person. This facility will allow us to look at implementing programs for underserved youths, teen programs. We have a definite challenge with accommodating the junior high to the 9th and 10th grade age grouping. And At the Guild, we just don't have the capacity to say, drop in after school. We have, there's too much structured programming. Having this additional space will allow us the opportunity to look at how we incorporate that type of programming into the overall structure.
Okay. That's great to know. Thank you.
Two ways to quantify the need for this facility. Terry will tell you, if there were not the great relationship between the recreation department and the schools, there'd be a major problem in this town. And that cooperation has always existed here. In a lot of towns, it does not. They butt heads over who's going to use the gyms, and it's not an easy discussion or situation. But in this town, it's always been very cooperative. Terry would tell you right now that if he wanted to, he could take and move the recreation department out of the schools and fill all that gym time with the teams that he has in the winter. There are no Saturday practices now at the high school. Years ago, that was unheard of. All the teams got in there for 2 hours each. But there had to be a decision made. Do we keep the recreation department out completely? Or do we let these kids come in because they are the future of the teams in the schools? And plus, they deserve recreation as well as anyone else. So keep that in mind. This facility alone, okay, is probably not going to solve the problem. It's going to help it greatly, but down the road, you're probably looking for more. And if you want to quantify it with figures and statistics, we did that for the last referendum. The second referendum, we had graphs and we showed when, like I said before, when every minute during waking hours was being used in those gyms and by whom. And we also had all the people that were waiting to use it that couldn't get in. It got so bad several years ago that there were groups going around to Matunic School, West Kingston School, Peacedale School, Curtis Corner, Broad Rock, and the high school, trying to circumvent the system and all get the gyms for themselves by signing them out in the schools. So you might have one group, one sport, and they'd send people out to book these gyms, and before you know it, that one group would have all the gyms monopolized in the town. So what we had to do was, we had to centralize all the requests through the athletic office to make sure that it was fair for everyone to get time.
That's how it still happens.
Okay,
today.
yes, it does. Okay, but I'm telling you, there is no doubt, and if you lived this and experienced it like a parent or a coach or an athletic director, you'd know that this is part of the solution. Somewhere down the road, people are going to look at this and see how successful this is, and they're going to say, we want another one.
I think if that's, we're wrapped up for public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to?
Good evening, my name is Pete Spinella. I'm a federal real property specialist, local commercial broker, past president of the Commercial Board of Realtors, and appraiser.
Pete, can I ask you to speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
Sorry. I'm looking at the numbers. This building, it's beautiful. Really, you guys did a great job. Engineering spent a lot of time on it. You can really see that it reflects the needs of our kids. The school system's going to benefit from it. My concern is really not about, do we need it? We know we need it. My concern is, how's the building constructed? It looks like steel Butler type, 20, 25 years?
30, 35 years, yeah.
35 years tops. I'm just looking at the financial impacts of it on the town, realistically. We've got a 20-year note on it, right? It's going to cost us about $10 million to pay it back. If you include the $300,000 that we're going to pay for the upgrades to the building, the maintenance costs and everything else, you're looking at about $10 to $11 million over the 20 years.
There's actually 4.15 million in bond
Right, we have to pay those
funding.
back.
5.8 million
Right.
is the payback on that
Okay.
funding.
What I'm just looking at is, when we're done paying it back, what's the building going to look like?
So, building lifespans are sort of a tricky thing because it depends on how well you maintain them. The 30, 35-year lifespan might be before there's a renovation project. The planning and the size are going to have a much bigger impact on how long, on the longevity of this building. We've talked to the building committee several times about how we accommodate all of the sports that go into the gym. We've discussed reducing the building footprint for cost savings on the initial cost, and it's something that has been resisted. The spaces that are provided in the gym, the building committee wanted to make sure that they've got adequate room for, that we're not squeezing things in so tight that the program is overlapping, so that each of the uses can have the space that they need. So the insight of the building committee to plan the gym properly, I think, is going to add to the longevity of the building, and then the maintenance certainly of the town has to be kept up to make sure that it lasts longer than that time frame, that it continues to serve the population.
I completely agree. I just think that we might not be budgeting enough money now for the building later if we're saying that, you know, our employee expenses, operating capital, so on and so forth, not including debt service, we're estimating about $300,000. Is that about right? Right, and that'll change over time. We know that, but you might want to think about doubling that number, realistically, because of what these types of buildings need for maintenance and for the additional costs going forward, so that, you know, our investment, the kids' futures, everything else is protected.
I agree. I think your point is well taken. One of the things that I would say is that this town does plan for future maintenance in order to maintain and sustain the facilities that we have. We incorporate our
Absolutely evident. It's evident.
six-year capital plan, and this facility will roll into that planning process.
I just think we might be short by a couple million. Yeah.
I'm not sure I follow where you're going with this, actually.
Your operating expenditures that you're
Yes.
planning on spending, you're spending $300,000 a year. What I'm saying is that on a building like this, they start to curve after a period in time. Even with our type of maintenance, this town is very aggressive and does good maintenance. But it's not the buildings that we're used to. It's not a concrete block building. This is not stone. These buildings deteriorate fast. So I don't think we're planning on enough money. Kim was here earlier, she said the same thing. I maintain a couple of the mills in this town. You guys know that. Operating expenses for those buildings are ridiculously high. So I think we need to really look back at this and say, maybe we should double that number. Give everyone a fair shake, look at the estimates properly. That's all. I mean, the engineering team will help you out with that one. I just don't think we're there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I can't match that presentation. But I was just going to say, build it and they'll come. I don't know who said that. I know that's a quote that I've heard many times. Right. And on this last part now that the gentleman got up and spoke about this building, I'm not an engineer, but I don't see any solar panels on that roof. Is there any government money involved in this? I came late, so this has probably already been covered, but is the government coming up with something for this building?
At this point, no. However, we're looking at energy efficiencies and whether or not there's some type of funding through National Grid and programs such as that in order to help.
I'm a big believer
offset.
in that type of thought process in anything that goes on. I just happened to have a couple of German people come down to my dock the other day, and I know then it brings to mind in Germany, they've got the windmills going. They got when they build a building, believe me, it's paneled, solar paneled, everything that they do. I mean, they're thinking ahead, and they don't have half the climate that we have. We got a better climate for that here. It's ridiculous. The State Beach in Jerusalem. It's South Kingstown, in the South Kingstown. Have you ever looked at the panels they have on? They have the solar panels. I don't know about the windmill right in everybody's backyard, or the turbine there, but because it does make noise when the wind is blowing quite fast. But you ought to get the statistics on maybe what how much electricity they're getting, because it's only used for 10 or 12 weeks a year, really, and yet they're getting electricity all year long, and it's pumping into the grid.
Bob, I don't know when you walked in. Nate did
I came in a little
detail
late,
some
so
of the...
I didn't. This is what I expected. When I saw all the cars, I said, "Wait a minute, this is a big night at the town council." I know when you have to hunt for a parking place, I know it's a big deal. But I didn't know. Of course, I came to a meeting I wasn't expected to come to, but I'm glad I came.
We're glad
I'm
you
wide
came,
awake.
too.
You've kept my attention. This is interesting stuff, and I think it's the greatest thing in the world. You've got to do this, and I think the last gentleman was speaking about this. You'll need another one of these. This will bring people to the town. This will bring important people to the town. This is what people are looking for. We're looking to stay alive. When I'm at 70, I'm going to be 75 in a little while. I'm looking to be 85.
Absolutely.
And I know it all pins down to getting on your feet and keep moving. That's what it's all about. So this is a great thing for the town, no matter what. It's something, it's long overdue. Everybody said it. It's long overdue. But I agree. He said it. We might need another one just like that in a few years. I hope so.
Hi, everybody. I'm Abel Collins. I just want to thank everybody on the planning committee and for the presentation. I have a lot better grasp of the project now. I think Mr. Kavanaugh really answered most of my questions about demand, especially if they had statistics for the previous referendum about how much of a necessity an indoor facility like this would be. So I hope people at home watching this are seeing that same sort of documented need for this facility. I hope they all support it. I will. I do think that a sidewalk down to Broad Rock Road out of here would make sense, just for the people who are walking along Broad Rock. It'll make it safer for them. And I agree that we shouldn't be cutting costs in terms of energy efficiency, if that would ever be done, because that's a place where in the end we're going to realize savings. And again, renewable energy projects, it's best to do them when you're constructing the building originally, so definitely look into state and federal programs for that. But otherwise, South Kingstown needs this project. I think the fact that it can be expanded to meet future demand increases makes sense as well. And thank you for your work.
The planning committee, or on behalf of the planning committee, the project planning committee and the design team, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for coming this evening to learn the facts about this important project to our community. Ideally, we're looking at providing this for the benefit of the people of South Kingstown. Yes, as Bob said, people will come to this building, but it's really for the benefit of the people here, the quality of life and the wellness of our community. Thank you very much. If there's some renderings as you leave the council chambers, if you have any questions, the design team will be here and the project committee as you're leaving. Thank you.